All right, so tonight I want to talk about detachment. What that means is something that is often kind of misconstrued, like you're going to act like you are, above things, or you maybe don't get too close to people. That's what people kind of associate with detachment. And that is not at all helpful, and actually quite the opposite in a number of ways to what the actual philosophy regarding detachment is. So we're going to talk about that, and importantly as well, why detachment is actually a great thing to cultivate in your own life, and how it can be incredibly useful in personal development and self-improvement as well. So very first thing, what does detachment mean, right? If it doesn't mean that you're detaching from like everybody else in the world, what are you actually detaching from? This is where the initial, I would say, misunderstanding tends to happen because people assume it is something that it is not. It's not about giving up material things at all. It's not about giving up the things you enjoy in life. It's not about going and becoming a monk who lives in a cave, who doesn't have any friends or family and is detached. That is not what it means. But what it does mean is detaching yourself from illusion. And that sounds kind of metaphysical, philosophy-wise, but also it is very practical and very literal. So much of what we interact with on a day-to-day basis, minute to minute, is, when you think about it, an illusion, right? Like, the way we see is actually our eyes receiving this kind of electromagnetic radiation that is both a particle and a wave and exists in a quantum wave state. Obviously, there's a massive light spectrum, but we can only see the tiny bit called visible light because it is visible to us. But that is a function of our eyes, not a function of reality. Just like that, we tend to go into events and see people, things, and situations through a lens that is formed by our preconceptions about who we are, who they are, how the world works, and what we think is going to happen. So the first element of detachment is to accept reality as it is. It is detaching from the preconceptions, from the illusions, from how we think things are or how they should be, and instead doing our best to engage with them on the level that they actually are. So often we allow the preconceptions we might have about how we think things are supposed to work or how they're going to work or how they've worked in the past to limit us. And we think that, this is how the world works. We think that I am this kind of person and I do this kind of thing. And that is another kind of person and they do another kind of thing. But really, a lot of that is arbitrary that we tell ourselves based on our past experiences. A story about who we are and what our past has meant and what the future will be because of that past. A step of detachment is realizing that that is a story and just noticing that it is not necessarily objectively true. Of course, the past is true, but so frequently, even our interpretations about the past. You might have had a relationship you were so engaged in and it ended, and now you're brokenhearted. The pain is no longer a function of the relationship. The relationship is over no matter what you do, right? So why does it still hurt after the thing is over? The pain is a function of your attitude towards not wanting to accept reality. So the first step is to engage with reality and do your best to see through those preconceptions. Don't think everything is personal. When somebody says something about you, it doesn't even mean it's about you. It often reflects more upon them and their own past and preconceptions. But we have this tendency to take everything personally and think, wow, that person hated the art I made or the thing I cooked. I have to take that personally and do some self-reflecting and understand it and integrate it into my worldview. Detachment as a philosophy says, let's take a step back. Maybe that one thing doesn't have to define us. Maybe that's not really that important. For one thing, that one thing you created could never define you anyway. But secondly, that other person only reacts that way because of their own personal story and experience that has made them that way. It's not a personal thing against you. In fact, it almost has nothing to do with you. So often we spend our time resisting reality. We don't want to accept things the way they are. We don't like it, so we try to change the external world. We try to do whatever we can to control circumstances to guarantee we get the thing we want to happen. This is one of the biggest areas where practicing a little bit of detachment can be incredibly beneficial to your life. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should, in all moments of life, be thankful and love our fate. He says, what's the exact quote? Accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all of your heart. It's about accepting the twists and turns of life that you cannot control. And the second part of this is to do just that. Accept the things you cannot control. So much of life is outside of our control, but that doesn't stop us, does it, from going around every day trying to do what we can to control things in our environment to make ourselves feel better. This is, at its core, almost the human condition, right? Everybody, when you think about it, feels not too great inside most of the time, and then goes around trying to externalize that and project it into the world as a problem they can solve by doing a few things, right? I feel lonely. I need a romantic partner. Oh, I feeling kind of bad about myself. Try and get a better job, get a better car. Then people will think more highly of me than I could feel more highly about myself. This is all attachment to those external merit badges that exist within the world, but really none of it actually does anything for that inner version of you that inherently does not feel very good, right? It is an external patch that we are applying to try to temporarily feel better. So many people are running around chasing relationships, right? Either you are in a relationship that you really like and you don't want it to end, or you're in a relationship that you don't like and you do want it to end, or you're not in a relationship and you really want one because you think it'll make your life better, or maybe you're not in a relationship and you're afraid of one because you have abandonment issues or something like that, and you're afraid you'll get hurt. All of these things fall on this spectrum of like pain and pleasure, where we are afraid of things or we really want things because we think they will make our lives better. But if you look into your own history, how many times have you been able to successfully control something for your entire life to make you constantly feel good about yourself? Never. It does not happen. You get a new job, you get a new car, you get into a new relationship. It is a first step and you feel great for maybe a week, and then what? You just sit back and you rest and then you're chilling forever? No, that is not how we work. Our minds will tell us that we need that next thing. We need that next hit. Then we'll feel good. It's an endless chase. So detachment also covers detaching yourself from the illusion that pursuing those external things will validate you to the point where you will just all of a sudden be happy and kumbaya and you won't have to worry about anything anymore. It is an endless rat race that pretty much all of humanity is on, going around constantly trying to change the external world so that they get to feel good inside. Detachment, as a philosophy, takes a step back and says, that's kind of silly. People are pursuing that internal sense of validation that comes from an external goal that has either been set for them by themselves or is something that society has deemed kind of good and they have bought into the idea of it. So understand that when it comes to relationships specifically, detachment is not at all about never having another person in your life or never developing a relationship, but it's about not having a dependency within yourself that says, if this person treats me a certain way, then I get to feel good about myself. Because when you do that, you are externalizing your own power. You are saying, I give this person or this situation the power to determine whether I feel okay inside. And at some level, that's what we're all doing with everything we are pursuing. It's whether it's a societal rule or something we've ingrained within ourselves or something from our family. Whenever we pursue those things that we think will make us feel better, it's because we have this thought process within ourselves, something hardwired within us that says this equals me being happy. But it is just that perception. And when we give those things the power to determine whether we're happy or not, well, of course we are somewhat inconsistently happy. Or in a relationship, let's say you've given, this is the person I want to be with, right? If that is your setup, you cannot control that person. You might try. A lot of people try, but they say, I'll feel great if, I'm within the vicinity of this person. If we're together, that'll be awesome. But then that's not enough. You feel great, but then that becomes your new baseline. So then you need a little bit more. Then you want to spend more time together. You want to do everything together. Then you become, paradoxically, so clingy and attached that you push the other person away, therefore fulfilling your worst fear instead of allowing reality to be the way it is and you to be okay either way. So thirdly, accept what you can control, and that is yourself. Of course, you are the only one who can control yourself. But until you can control yourself, going out into the world and attempting to manipulate it in order to make yourself feel better is a flawed at best and at worst pretty destructive thing that you can do. Think about politicians, right? So many politicians, after an illustrious career, everybody would think they're amazing, they're great, they've got a mansion, they've got a career made, they've got family, everything comes crumbling down, and it turns out it was all a lie, it was all a sham, they were corrupt, they were drug addicts, having affairs, whatever. Why? Because it is this external wall that has been built up bigger and bigger and bigger, because those people, instead of noticing, instead of realizing that they felt not okay inside, instead of realizing that that was their own responsibility, that was their thing to fix, they needed to work internally and solve that problem. Instead of doing that, they went on the extreme end of that, go out into the world and try to manipulate everything and fix the problem. So they say, you know what, the problem is the whole world. I'm gonna become a politician, I'm gonna become a leader and solve the whole world so that I feel okay inside. And the more and more you do that without that internal center, the more you need the results, the more you need, it's actually an energy drain. You're not able to give because you are the one who needs it to work. Until you are whole within yourself, how can you ever be in a relationship with somebody and give them something valuable or honest? It comes from a place of you needing something from them in return. When you are operating on that level, everything you do has a manipulative tendency. And we see that on large scale, like politicians, right? If everything comes crumbling down, it was an illusion. It was built up so that they felt good as long as they could control all these external things. But it wasn't about giving, it was about control, because they needed to control to feel okay. And that's obviously very human, like that's something we all experience, but you cannot externalize to that degree. It becomes very destructive. At the very best, you become slightly manipulative in what you do, but at the worst, you can become a truly terrible person because you have to control everything to feel okay in your environment. When we can't control ourselves, we compensate by trying to control the entire world. And we really can't do that. It's been running for like 13.8 billion years. We are all made up of tiny atomic specks of particle wave matter that are mostly empty space or exist on a quantum state, and we try to act as if we have the potential to control everything in the unique way that will make us feel okay. And our brains tell us, you know, if we can just get that one thing just right, then it'll be great. But then there's always another thing. We've all experienced that. But our brains say, you know what? There's one more problem, and then we'll be chill. But that's not how it works. So then what can you do? What can you actually do in your life to feel okay inside without going around trying to manipulate and control everything? And the first step in this kind of self-mastery, that is the true improvement in self-improvement, is improving the bigger self, not the small egoic self, not learning how to control the world better. That's just silly, isn't it? So many people are running around trying to self-improve to the point of just learning how to better control and manipulate the world, or to better feel okay by controlling how their body looks, how much money they have. Like, it's not bad, but it's not actually gonna fix the underlying issue until you acknowledge what that problem is in the first place. So the very first step of self-mastery is simply becoming aware. When you're going through your day-to-day life, just look at things and notice when you're doing things to manipulate a result so that you feel okay. And it's very common and it's very human. Like, don't judge yourself too much, but just start to become aware and start to notice how attached you are to the individual outcomes of almost everything you do. And this is where detachment comes in. What we really need to do for true improvement is to detach our emotional weight we give to every single outcome. So often when we want things to go a certain way, when we need things to go a certain way, we stop ourselves from enjoying the process, engaging in the moment, and we stop interacting with reality, as is that first point of detachment. We are no longer interacting with what's happening. We interact with our perceptions. The more we operate in this world where we need everything to be a certain way, or want everything to be a certain way, related to trying to control those perceptions, it just doesn't work very well. So the second step, once you've become aware of some of these patterns and when you're actually trying to connect and control the outside world to feel better, when you notice yourself being too attached to things, start to wake up a little bit. Ask yourself, you know, when has this worked? When have I ever been perpetually happy from this one thing? Why is my mind telling me that if I get this thing, this will be the one, this will be the time, this will be the thing? Is that real? Remember, we want to engage with reality. We want to ask ourselves, you know, what part of me is so attached to this one thing? I have to get this job. I have to date this person. Oh, if I don't get this money for this thing, my entire life is over. How much of that is reality versus our perceptions? Notice that and start asking yourself these questions. Becoming aware and then diving a little bit deeper is the second step. Diving into where those thoughts and processes come from, usually somewhere deep in your psyche. but it's not objectively real very often. And the third step is just beginning to detach. Once you've become aware, once you've noticed, and once you've analyzed a little bit, you start to have a choice. You go into every situation and you realize that you have the freedom to choose how you react. You'll say, normally, this is the kind of thing I would do here. Normally, this would have this impact on me, but I can change that. Once you've observed, once you've noticed and become aware, which is probably the most important step. Once you become aware, once you've gone a little bit deeper, you can begin to detach. You can begin to say, you know what? This is not a real thing. I am engaging with a figment of my imagination. I have imagined that a life with this person will be the best thing ever. So I need it for me to feel better because I don't feel okay within myself. And then you look at that and you say, that's pretty silly. How can I put the responsibility for all of my future happiness on this one person behaving a certain way? Am I going to try to manipulate and control them for the rest of their life and mine just so I feel okay? And this is what happens. You end up with codependent relationships where you have people clinging to each other. I've done it, where you cling to somebody to the point where you feel like they are almost more important than you. And it's so hilarious, it's so backwards, it's not real. It's a twisted psyche projection based on your past experiences and how you feel about yourself that you are seeking clarity and healing from out in the world, and it does not exist until you turn that light inward and you realize that you are the source of your own power and contentment. But we just give it away without a second thought all of the time. So detachment means detaching from the need for external validation, detaching from the need for everything to go a specific way, saying, you know what, I will be okay either way. I'll be okay if this fails, I'll be okay if this succeeds because I'm good in here. It's not about what's happening out there. What's happening out there is a reflection, maybe, of what's happening in here. Like, you are able to better interact and engage with the world because you don't need everything to be a specific way. You don't desire and you don't depend. Your well-being does not spike up and down like this. You can instead engage with other people on a genuine level. You can actually care about other people because you don't need them to be a certain way for you to feel okay. It's no longer about you, it becomes about them. In the Bible, they talk about before you try and take a speck out of your friend's eye, take the whole stick out of your eye. This is the politician thing. If you go out and try to change the world so you feel better, you are not only doing a disservice to yourself, but you are manipulating the world. You are doing a disservice to the world. Until you fill up that internal sense of well-being, how can you expect to engage with the world with any source of authenticity or realness? Because you want something for you. It's for you. That's what you have to detach from. The perception of trying to control everything to get what you want. It's not about that. It's about realizing that you are whole, you are good, you are worthy. Only then can you authentically engage with the world in the first place. And so that is where detachment can help your life. By disengaging all of that importance, by all of that neediness, you can regain that power within yourself. You come to realize that you are the source of your own contentment, and everything else is a condition set up by your psyche that you can let go of. You can release once you understand it and become aware of it. But until you go inward and realize that you are giving away that power to determine your own well-being, you will constantly go through the world seeking that external validation. We constantly go around giving people the power to judge us and then hoping that they will judge us favorably. When we approach somebody in a business deal or in a relationship or whatever, when we want something from somebody, we put ourselves on a lower level and then hope that they give us what we want, and if they don't, we feel bad. How silly is that? We're putting our own neck on the chopping block and then saying, please don't chop. It's kind of silly. But when you approach things from this will be okay either way, this isn't the end of the world, engaging with reality, this is not everything for me, this is not the last shot I'll ever have, this is not my only opportunity, I can do other things. Also, this person is not a high and mighty arbiter of justice. They don't know everything. They're not that much better than me. They're just another human being. We're engaging on a dialogue, engaging in that reality. That is real, or at least more real. Obviously, that whole wave particle spectrum thing still applies, but that is significantly more real than engaging with our preconceptions and beliefs and our thoughts and how we perceive this other person to be better than us. And that makes us nervous and anxious. And then we act a certain way towards them and they feel this odd energy. And that is a terrible dynamic that exists in so many things because we are so externalized in the way we project our energy into the world. So take your power back. Start to notice where you are too attached to results or people, where you are giving away your happiness to other people, where you are hoping that the world behaves a certain way so you get to feel okay. And ask yourself if that's really how you want your life to be. And start noticing those patterns and letting go of them. And begin to transcend those old behaviors. That is the power of detachment. It's not detachment in the sake of you never engage in relationships and you never have anybody close to you. No, it's not that at all, because you will bring people into your life. Detachment means you are free to engage in this relationship. You are free to be open-hearted and full of love and full of life. That's the point. The point is to engage with reality, and reality can be very beautiful and amazing, but it's real. The point is to be open and loving towards the world as much as possible, and not be caught up in your own perceptions and allow those to limit you and hold you back in a prison that only exists in your own head. Does that make sense? If you want to learn a little bit more about this, check out this video right here, where I go through the process of how you can begin letting go of deeply held emotional toxic patterns within yourself. That's a great place to start if you want to kind of work on things you've been building up inside yourself thus far. Aside from that, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.